Thank you, Chaotic Brain, for 500 yuan. I think, yeah, that's it. I want to also talk about, since we're on this China thing, um, and we're talking about how the West feels threatened. And I believe what's speeding up the fear is that all of the levers of power that the West used to be able to exert on China or anybody, like the sanctions, the threat of war, and all of this other stuff, it no longer holds suit like. Let's take China for instance again. They sanctioned China to stop China from progressing in chip manufacturing. And I want to read something to you right here. This comes from Hardware.com. It's a tech industry website. Excuse me. And the headline is this: Evidence mounts that China has sanctions defying 5 nanometer technology. It says how Huawei reportedly preps new AI processor built with Chinese fabs, and it says N2 node. And then the first paragraph says this: TrendForce, a market intelligence firm, reports that Huawei is prepping a successor that will be made using SMIC's N+2 fabrication technology. Huawei's high silicons post ascend, and I'm just reading it like it is. I don't understand this part. Post ascend 910B AI chip is expected to offer higher performance, partially due to its new process node. The next generation AI processor purportedly uses SMIC's N+2 processing technology. Now, this has them freaking out because China just came out with a chip and they thought it was not possible for China to come out. And now they've come up with an upgraded chip that now rivals some of the best chips in the West. And they're freaking out because the sanctions didn't work. What have you to say on this?
Okay, so this is problem when you have people who don't understand technology, who don't understand the industry, and being put in charge of policy. And one of the greatest strengths of the U.S. tech industry is adoption, is a worldwide adoption of the U.S. standard and U.S. technology. But U.S. government is coming out and say, we cannot have that in China. We're gonna sanction China. So that's taking the whole of China, this huge market, off the shelf for U.S. companies. I mean, it's no longer possible. Before, Huawei would be perfectly happy to design their chip in-house but have them manufactured on Taiwan by TSMC. And it was perfectly happy to source NVIDIA AI chips from United States. But US says, no, you cannot manufacture your chip on Taiwan anymore. No, NVIDIA cannot sell their AI chips to China. So for Chinese companies, do or die, like the only alternatives they have now is rely on domestic manufacturer. So now Huawei now have to work with domestic Chinese chip maker SMIC, and say, okay, yeah, we sorry we kind of overlooked you before, but now we gotta work together because that's the only way we're both gonna survive, because both of us being under sanction by the United States. And so now it's creating a synergy that even past Chinese government's own policy couldn't create, because Chinese government before is not telling Huawei you can only buy Chinese-made components. You can only work with SMIC, no. Chinese government didn't say anything like that, because Chinese government was all for like globalization. You can buy whatever best product for your company, right? You are a private company, you can do whatever you want. But now there's suddenly an economic incentive for all these Chinese companies to work together, because it's do or die. It's like they're getting physically cut off. So now it's creating like a virtuous cycle. So all these money that Huawei puts in to buy chips from SMIC goes into research and development of SMIC to develop the next generation chips. And now Huawei has to design everything in-house instead of paying the big bucks to NVIDIA to buy NVIDIA's AI chips. Now they develop their own chip in house. Ascend, that's the Huawei's name for their own AI chip. The AI is something that U.S. was really worried about China catching up, because Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO, he has the idea that the AI, the generative AI, is going to be like the next industrial revolution. And his idea is U.S. must remain dominant, maintain a tech lead in that aspect. We can't have China get a jump ahead, like a leapfrog United States in the AI arena. So that's why they're trying to limit the chips technology to China, so China doesn't have a leg up on AI. But it's doing the completely opposite effect. It's actually spearheading China's AI development at this point, because now China is decoupling from United States by U.S. policies, and they're progressing ahead despite U.S. sanctions. And the only thing that U.S. can come up with, Gina Raimondo, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, just said, we're gonna up our ante on sanction. We're gonna place more sanction on China, because you know what? Because if it doesn't work before, let's just do it again and harder, right? So let's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting to work. Except Gina Raimondo's like, we just got to do it harder, the sanction harder. They're expanding the sanctions, so going to force more Chinese company to seek domestic solutions. And let's face it, these people obviously haven't been inside U.S. high research institutions, Well, I have, because my dad was one of the researchers at the University of Illinois in Chicago. When I went to my dad's labs, there's a lot of Chinese grad students there. I mean, and now U.S. policy is actually making life difficult for these Chinese talent who had chose to work in the United States. So many of them are now heading back to China, either motivated by patriotism or also by more personal self-interest, because life is getting harder in the United States. China is offering more incentive for them to go back. And so this is enforcing a virtuous cycle where the Chinese tech continue to power ahead despite the U.S. sanction. And China has a natural advantage in AI, because one of the main tool of AI development is training the machines on human behavior. And China has a huge population base, and this is why they come up with TikTok algorithm and stuff like that, because they all tried on the Chinese consumer first to figure out what ticks, and then they exported the algorithm worldwide. So this is why China has a natural advantage in AI development. This is what makes the people in Washington afraid. It goes back to the same fear of losing hegemony. This is in the tech space, and they think, and the Chinese also understand that, because Chinese had a bad experience on missing out on the first industrial revolution back in 1840s. The result is Opium War, and that wasn't pretty. So the lesson that China took from the Opium War is, if you fall behind, you get beaten, you get invaded, you get brutalized. So we can never fall behind again. So for China, this is an existential issue. They cannot afford to miss out on the next industrial revolution in AI, and they're devoting all their resource into it right now, both by China's own state policies and also by United States state policies, because U.S. is forcing them to working together more closely than ever before. And now Huawei is putting their AI technology in Chinese manufactured electric vehicles. Like all the latest Chinese cars, electric vehicle cars, they have the Huawei Harmony OS, they have the Huawei AI chips. And this is all happening in-house without United States. And all those billions of dollars that China used to spend on importing U.S. technology, that's all now going to China. And it's going to fund the next level Chinese research. So, U.S. is not winning this battle right now. And as we all said, China is going to power ahead no matter what, whether with or without United States. I mean, they're still gonna power ahead. Because why would you think anything different? Because they graduate tens of thousands of engineers every year. They have like the best scores in science and math, and that's what Chinese kids want to grow up to be astronauts. The American kids want to grow up to be YouTubers. So I mean, like, how do you think you can compete with that?
I'm glad we're on this subject, because it goes back to what I was saying before, about China holds over $1 trillion in U.S. debt. Everybody, hold on one second. Carl is hilarious, I'm telling you. But and 93 to 95% of all goods on U.S. shelves are from China or a subsidiary of China. And then we have the United States now talking about that next year they're going to deploy mid-range missiles to the Asia Pacific to deter China. Now, it's not aggressiveness by the U.S., but it's to deter China, because China is aggressive by deploying warships off China's own coast. And so on top of that, I was just reading an article that came out on December 7th, and it was talking about U.S. must prevent Chinese century. This is what DeSantis says. And he says something that he would deter China's ambition and prevent them from invading Taiwan. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Almost all of the globe recognizes Chinese Taipei as an integral part of China, the one China. Even the United States national policy recognizes Taiwan or Chinese Taipei as part of one China. Now, what business is it of the United States if China deploys troops to a province of China? China did not make a big issue about the United States deploying troops to Texas or to California or to Hawaii.
It gets worse, Rashid. Recently, David Cameron was being interviewed, I think on BBC, and he was asked by the interviewer a question. He said, "Well, China is, pushing for peaceful reunification with Taiwan. So what if the peaceful reunification does happen? What would you be your response?" David Cameron says, "We cannot allow that to happen." Peaceful reunification. Okay, nobody's talking about war, invasion. See, David Cameron is like, no. Even peaceful reunification is not in our interest. I mean, he was just saying the quiet part loud, because we all know Taiwan is basically an outpost of the U.S. empire at this point. It's one of the many U.S. client states in East Asia. It's what General MacArthur called the unsinkable aircraft carrier. And that's parked on the doorstep of China. This is a real reason why U.S. cannot afford to have the reunification happen with mainland China, no matter what. Even if it's peaceful reunification, they're against that, because they're really peace is not on their mind. On their mind is China cannot get back together. Mainland China cannot get back together with Taiwan, because that threatens the whole structure of the U.S. imperial system. And that's really what they find unacceptable. And again, I'm sure people of Taiwan can look at what happened in Ukraine. Like this is what happened. What happened to Ukraine is a good example from all the people in the world. This is what happens when you volunteer yourself to be involving a deadly proxy war against U.S. enemies on the U.S. behalf. So after a couple of years, they just kick you off the curb. U.S. Congress is now saying, "Oh, we're done funding Ukraine war because we have our golden child Israel to take care of. Sorry, Ukraine, we got priorities, right?" It's it's not US number one, it's Israel number one. Israel is always going to be the top priority on the minds of US politicians. So Ukraine, Taiwan, I'm sorry, they don't even come close. They don't even come close to Israel in their importance to the congressman in Washington. And so we have yeah this is we are kind of like sitting here laughing at the last stage, the late stage of the American empire. We're just laughing at the way it's going down. But right now, China's fault is in these neocons' eyes, basically existing and thriving. That's a China threat. It's like, how dare you can exist outside the American imperial system and actually succeed, because that sets a really bad example for the rest of the world when they realize, oh, okay, maybe United States, US empire is not dispensable. It's not indispensable in the well-being of the development of the people. So and again, this is where China offers vision for the future. Xi Jinping's slogan is the common destiny of the mankind, of a shared future together. And the whole idea is to be friends to all and enemy of none. But that's not what the Western understanding of geopolitics, because in the US it's always zero sum. It's like, what's good for me, that means less for me. What's good for you is less for me. I cannot have that. I have to have more for me, less for you. That's the only comfortable way I can live with. And that and more people are seeing through that. And this Palestinian conflict is also just basically exposed wide open the hypocrisy of the West, and U.S. is taking a huge reputational damage right now, all for the sake of its golden boy Israel, for Benjamin Netanyahu's ambition to remain the Israeli leader, because that's what really this is about. Because Netanyahu was facing domestic revolt before this, and now he's trying to play the wartime leader. And he's dragging U.S. on his side through the mud, into the quagmire, and I just don't see how Israel will going to come out on top in this, because whatever atrocity and war crimes they commit, that's not going to break the spirit of resistance. It's only going to harden it, because people now have they can't now. When you make sure they cannot even lead a normal life, they have no incentive. Now they have every incentive to continue to fight the oppression. And I'm sorry, I'm not a peaceful guy. I'm not like anti-violence at all costs. When you are facing with when you're facing with oppression, when you're facing with enemy who want to ethnically cleansing you, want to genocide you, want to bomb your home and kill your children, sometimes violence is the only answer, Rashid. I mean, like, you are not going to get Palestinians have tried peaceful resistance before, like nonviolence approach. That didn't get them anywhere. I mean, like at the end of the day, you have to do what the Vietnamese did to kick the Americans out. You have to do it with a lot of violence. And what the Palestinian resistance have done, people are looking at this like kind of analyzing like a baseball game or something, like, oh, look at all this equipment Israelis IDF have, they're doing what kind of damage they're doing to all the look at the kill ratio or whatever. That's not the point. This is what the Vietnamese understood in their war for independence and liberation against Americans. They understood war is politics by other means. The ultimate goal of the war is to achieve the political aim, which is to get the Americans out of there. And so when they launched the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, it was widely seen by American military intelligence as a failure on Vietnam's part, because they launched the Viet Cong launched this large scale offensive, but in the end, a lot of they paid a very heavy price for it. But what it actually did was a great victory in a political victory. It might not be a military victory, but it was a great victory for Viet Cong because American audience for the first time on television live, they saw all these crooks or politicians selling them about how the war is winnable in Vietnam. That's all bullshit. and how everything was manageable in Vietnam. Just like how Jake Sullivan was telling the press how Middle East is this calm, peaceful land of, how this land of calm, peaceful ocean. That mythology got blown out of water. And now everybody can see the Israeli atrocity is wide open for the whole world to see. And again, that's a political victory for the Palestinian resistance. Yes, they're paying a heavy price, but guess what? The Vietnamese, they were willing to pay that price because ultimately they're fighting for their national dignity, they're fighting for independence, they're fighting for liberation. And Americans at the end of the day, they are chicken hawks. They like to go for the soft target. And when they find the price is too high, they're like, okay, we're just kidding. We're going to pack up and leave right now. And now they're trying to get back into the good grace of Vietnam, right? After 40, 50 years later. And so I think, people are looking at those military nerds who are analyzing this purely hardware, kill ratio type of way. It's kind of misguided approach. This is a national struggle. This is an anti-colonial struggle. This is they're willing to go to the limit to make the price unaffordable for their colonizer, for the settlers, because all these Israelis who left the kibbutz destroyed in October 7th. How many are going back? How many are going back to that? Right? I mean, like this is what So yeah, so I'm sorry. Violence sometimes is the answers. Violence sometimes works, and you have to be smart about it, be strategic about it. You apply it in such a way to make your enemy either come to the negotiation table or to make them back off. And that is the end goal. I think right now I don't think how long this Zionist project can continue at its current pace, because I don't think it's sustainable. They have to rely on continued support of the United States, but at least the people in the United States or have at least show the decency that they are overwhelmingly for peace. And it's only our leaders, the decrepit old senile leaders, that's holding out. And I don't know how long they're gonna hold. I mean, next year we'll find out. like we will see. Like we have, we're gonna get a new set of clowns in office, and let's see how they will handle it. But at the end of the day, the U.S. empire is no longer well-oiled machine. Oh, I just saw that report about the U.S. Navy. They couldn't find. They're 20% short on their recruitment goals, so they have to cut staff on the USS Gerald Ford, which is the most advanced aircraft carrier currently in the U.S. Navy. But because they couldn't recruit enough sailors, they have to. The ship is only like 80 or 70% staff. I mean, this is the reality of the U.S. military war machine. And yet these chicken hawks in Washington think they can use this force to go to war with China. I mean, like they can't even find enough sailors. I mean, like maybe it's time for them to round up the village people to do another in the Navy music video.
So we're going to come back to the Chinese U.S. Conflict that is brewing, but